After they drove the car into the ditch, made it as difficult as possible for us to pull it back, now they want the keys back. No. You can't drive.
President Obama in New York last night, I guess, road testing the 2010 message.
I'm starting to get wee-weed up about all these different metaphors. Topline starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Washington Post Topline. I'm David Challey.
And I'm Rick Klein.
Each weekday, we're bringing you the very latest political headlines, reporting, insight, analysis, everything you need and want to know about politics.
And steer on over to Twitter. It's twitter.com/the note.
Let's put an end to that right now, Rick Klein.
Only the president will.
Get us started.
Stepping it up, President Obama at this hour is taking it to BP and also to his own administration over the now 3.5-week-old spill that is still not under containment in the Gulf of Mexico. David, it's interesting. We heard from the White House they kind of calculated that they're going to come out and tell us about how angry the president is about all the actions. But the other side of it is this is a White House that has said from the beginning, we are all over this. We are handling this. We are taking charge of the situation from day one. So for him now to come out almost a month into this situation and say, I am not pleased with what it is pretty stark.
Even though the poll numbers that we have seen give him majority approval on how he's handled the oil spill. But I think it's the timing that you just said. We are 26 days into this. They know they cannot just put this on the shelf and be done with it. To keep that majority approval, they're going to have to keep working it. Republican love. Yes, that is what Elena Kagan is getting up on Capitol Hill. Yesterday, we heard from two moderate Northeast Republicans, Susan Collins and Scott Brown, both of whom seem to indicate this is not the nominee that is going to be filibustered in any way. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see them, should nothing else emerge between now and the vote, for them to be in the yes column on this final vote on Kagan. They had very positive things to say about her.
And, of course, them saying that they won't filibuster takes away that opportunity. The Republicans would need every single Republican to support a filibuster, so this takes the teeth out of any major opposition that we might see. Palin Action, a trio of big events on Sarah Palin's schedule today. She started this morning with an event for an anti-abortion rights group. She's got a guns rights group later in the day, and she will be heading to the politically potent Palmetto State, where she will be endorsing a gubernatorial candidate, Nikki Haley, there. So we're seeing her step up in a number of different areas. She always makes headlines wherever she goes.
I still don't think she's running for president, but my God, she's doing everything that looks like she still very much wants us to be thinking she's running for president. South Carolina governor's race, it doesn't get more presidential than that. And finally, surrogate swing. Yes, Scott Brown yet again in a headline today. He's heading to that district in Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania, that Jack Murtha, the late Jack Murtha, used to represent, and that is up for a special election on Tuesday. He's supporting the Republican nominee, and his message is sort of like, hey, I did this in a traditional Democratic state. This has been a Democratic district for a long time. It's time for it to go to Republican. That's their big closing Republican surrogate, showing you the popularity of Scott Brown. And, of course, Bubba, Bill Clinton, will be in there on Sunday for the Democrats.
And interesting, in this race, Republicans are a little bit worried that there's been so much attention paid to the Democratic primary for the Senate race that it could boost Democratic turnout. Whether you're for Specter or Sestak, you may be supporting the Democrat in that race.
And it's still a very Democratic district in terms of registration as well. Richard Socarides is our first guest. He's a former Clinton advisor, special assistant to the president, worked with Elena Kagan in the White House, and he joins us from our studios in New York. And Richard, you are also, we should say, a very active gay rights advocate and active in the gay rights community. And I don't know if you've seen this story in the Washington Post today in the style section, but this notion, even though the White House has come out and said Elena Kagan is straight, there is this notion and a conversation going on right now about Elena Kagan's sexuality. Is that an appropriate conversation to be having?
Well, I thought there were two interesting pieces in the Post today, Ruth Marcus's and Karen Tumulty, and I think that I mean, they were among the more interesting things written about it, but I think the whole conversation now is probably more silly than anything else, and is probably mostly about bloggers trying to drive traffic to their blogs. I think it's appropriate for bloggers to talk about whatever they want to talk about, but I don't think it's had much of an impact. I think right now what we see, most importantly, is that the president has nominated a brilliant lawyer and scholar who's universally well regarded by Republicans and Democrats, who's getting a great reception on the Hill, and by the looks of these meetings she's been having, has got some pretty great political skills also.
One more point on this, and we'll move on. But in the Karen Tumulty piece, there was an admission by Anita Dunn, the former White House communications director, saying that they actually did ask about her sexual orientation when she was up for Solicitor General. You also saw the White House here call them false charges when this was first leveled. It makes me curious. You think that the White House has been handling this well and appropriately? Have they figured this out, or they have some hiccups in terms of how they've had this discussion?
Well, I think they were a little flat-footed at the beginning, really actually before she was nominated. But once she's been nominated, I think it's been fine.
I want to turn to one issue that the Republicans sort of focused in on very early on once her name was announced on Monday with the president in the East Room there. And this idea, even before the nomination was announced, this was out there, but this idea of her support for Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the military recruiters up at Harvard, where she asked them not to be recruiting. She reinstated that ban to not recruit on the Harvard Law School campus. I guess the question here, though, is about potential future cases, Richard. Do you think now that she has expressed an opinion on the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy that she would have to recuse herself from any future Don't Ask, Don't Tell case that might come before the High Court?
No, I don't think she'd have to recuse herself. I think that, she was expressing a political and an institutional opinion, and an opinion long held by that institution, Harvard Law School, around, against Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It is, that opinion is very much in the mainstream of thought here today in this country. It looks like that law is going to be repealed. But I think she, if there's anything that's clear about her, is that she is a fair person and will look at any case and judge any case on the merits of that particular case. I mean, each one of these cases that comes before the court has to be judged on its particular facts and may turn on, as we see in many cases in the courts, that it turns on the specific facts of each case. So I don't think she would recuse herself, nor do I think that she's prejudged any of these cases. I mean, I don't know where she would stand on any particular case given the particular facts.
Richard, one thing we've seen out of Republicans in the last couple of days is a concern about whether she would be too close to the administration's policies, whether this is essentially an automatic vote for the Obama agenda. Are those concerns warranted at all? And if you think they're not, I'm just wondering, what do you look at? What should people be looking at for clues about where her judging philosophy comes from?
Well, I think that you have to look at her look at her entire career and look at the choices she's made during her life. I mean, and where she comes from. I mean, she's from New York. Her father was a tenants' rights lawyer. Her mother was a public high school teacher. She clerked for two very significant progressive judges, Abner Mikva and Thurgood Marshall, obviously one of the greatest judges of this, of the current time. Those are choices that she's made along the way. She's worked for two Democratic presidents in a great progressive tradition, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. She worked and ran the Harvard Law School, generally considered a progressive institution, not one of the more conservative institutions in our country.
To say the very least.
But I think those are clues. I mean, obviously, I think this is a woman who, from everybody's interaction with her, including my interaction, she's interesting because she's always more interested in learning from other people and learning what other people think. She is always one of the smartest people in the room, but unlike many smart people who are more interested in saying what they think, in my interactions with her, she's always interested more in learning what other people think and what she can learn from other people's views. So she's very inquisitive, very fair-minded.
Now, back in the 90s, when you were sitting in the West Wing with her, working on some domestic policy issues, did it ever cross your mind that you might be working with a future Supreme Court justice?
We don't, well, that's a good question. I think you had the view when you were with her that she was destined for big things. I mean, she in the West Wing had this little office which had no windows in it, this long, narrow room, and you'd go in there and you'd sit there, it'd be dark, and she'd be asking you questions and going over stuff together. and you knew that she was destined for bigger and better things, or at least a bigger office.
Richard Socarides.
Richard, I want to get your thought real quickly. The don't ask, don't tell policy, you've been critical about the pace from the Obama administration. Are you satisfied with what you're seeing now? Is this going to be repealed this year, in your judgment?
Well, I hope it's going to be repealed this year. It is not at all clear to me that we've had enough leadership from the president and from the White House in general in terms of giving the Congress support for their efforts to attach full repeal to a defense authorization bill that is going to come up later this month. I think it's very important for the president to act now and to reassure Congress that they will have his full support and attach repeal for don't ask, don't tell to the defense authorization bill, even if the implementation comes later, which is in keeping with what Secretary Gates has wanted.
Richard Socarides, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it.